The Perfect Posing training tapes now include several video and audio tapes to help bodybuilders like you rise to the top of your sport, including 2 videos on posing technique and a detailed training video focusing exclusively on diet and nutrition for bodybuilders. The first tape in the series is the highly acclaimed Perfect Posing video, a 90-minute guide to everything you need to know about mandatory and relaxed round poses. Veteran bodybuilding judge and posing coach Gary Udit leads you step by step through every pose of the prejudging round, teaching you the correct, proven way to pose better and score higher. Perfect Posing also includes the basics of an individual routine, plus valuable information on how to avoid common mistakes, choose posing suits, oils, tanning, and a lot more. It's the A to Z of posing. The follow-up video to Perfect Posing is Perfect Individual Routine, a detailed training video focusing exclusively on the crucial 60 and 90-second routines you'll have to perform in contests. Once again, Gary Udit and a male and female competitor teach you dozens of new poses, special auxiliary poses, which you can add to the mandatories to build that winning routine. Gary shows you poses that hide your weaknesses and show off your strengths. Plus, he teaches you how to make those smooth transitions, how to choose music and choreograph to it in the correct way, how to avoid the 12 biggest mistakes competitors make in their routines, how to win in a pose down, how to make your nighttime routine work perfectly in the shorter prejudging round, and there's more. This video was created in response to popular demand from Perfect Posing customers, and it gives you all the tricks and techniques to build a perfect routine from scratch or improve the routine you now have to help you win. Also, in response to requests from customers, Gary has created the Perfect Contest Diet video, the ultimate guide to help you get into peak condition. This is a step-by-step nutritional program with over 100 proven ways to add size in the off-season and how to get into awesome shape in those 12 weeks before a contest. Never before has a nutritional video been so thorough. You'll learn the right and wrong way to add size, how to lose water and get ripped safely, the secrets to stay big and full while still remaining lean and healthy, how to control your carb and protein intake so they help you, not hurt you in a contest, how to know exactly how you'll look on contest day so there won't be any surprises, how to regulate your water so you can control your weight, all the pros and cons of nutritional programs like carb depletion. Does it really work? Is it right for you? And a lot more. This video gives you all the tools to get big in the off-season, along with the ultimate 12-week pre-contest nutritional plan. Finally, Gary has created 2 audio tapes to assist you in getting ready for a contest. The Prejudging Practice audio tape runs you through all the steps of the prejudging round, so you can practice each mandatory pose step by step without having to refer to your Perfect Posing videotape. This audio tape is great for using in the gym, at home, or right before a contest to fine-tune each detail of the mandatory and relaxed round poses. Also, Gary leads you through an actual prejudging round to get you ready for the way the judges will really call it out. Also, there's the Contest Psych-Up tape, an essential audio tape for any serious competitor. Gary designed this audio tape to help you backstage at a contest and in the week leading up to your show. It's based on years of competing and training competitors. He shows you proven ways to get into the winning mindset for the contest, how to beat the inevitable case of the nerves, how to psych yourself up and psych out your competitors. If you listen to this audio tape right before going on stage, you'll walk before those judges ready to win. This series of Perfect Posing training tapes is all designed based on requests from thousands of competitive bodybuilders like you. And the audio tapes and videotapes are filled with information it's nearly impossible to find anywhere else. Get it right. Get it now. The Perfect Posing series. For more information or to receive a brochure, call the numbers on your screen. Hello and welcome to Perfect Individual Routine, the follow-up to the Perfect Posing video and the ultimate guide to building a perfect individual routine that will help you win your next bodybuilding contest. Once again, this program is hosted by Gary Udit, a nationally respected bodybuilding trainer and judge who's devoted much of his career to coaching competitors in posing technique. In the first Perfect Posing video, Gary demonstrated the fundamentals of posing, along with all the relaxed and mandatory round poses that are so essential to winning. Now, in this video, Gary takes you to the next level, teaching you dozens of new auxiliary poses and showing you the tricks and techniques to a perfect routine.
What people will learn in this tape that differs from the first one is that in the first tape we covered mandatory posing and the relaxed round. This tape is going to cover individual posing in its entirety. Everything from how you start a routine, what you do in the middle of a routine, how to end a routine, how to do your transitions, what poses to do, what poses to stay away from. Everything you need to know about how to design a routine. In the first tape, we covered only the relaxed round and the mandatories, so this is going to expand on that. In a bodybuilding contest, there are 2 times during the judging that you will do an individual routine. Once is during the prejudging portion of the contest, in which you get 60 seconds to perform an individual routine with no music. You are not obligated to use all 60 seconds in that portion. In the evening, the individual routine is done to music. At that point, you get 90-second maximum. Once again, you're not obligated to use all 90 seconds. The 2 routines do not have to be different. They can be the exact same routine. The only difference being that at nighttime, obviously, you'll have music playing. It does, though, give you the ability to do some fancier things at nighttime. The things to keep in mind are this. With only 60 seconds to pose, you don't have much time in the morning. So don't throw in too many things that are going to drag things out. Secondly, prejudging is all business. It's your time to impress the judges and make them pick you first. If you do too many poses that, instead of being in the top 20% of what's good for you, and you start to do things that are iffy, then you just don't look your best. And it's not necessary to do 12 to 15 poses just because you think you need 12 to 15 poses in 60 seconds. Much better off to do 8 good solid poses and leave. If you hit a posing routine that's great for 30 to 45 seconds, it's terrific. Judges are not impressed by someone who fills up 60 seconds with poses that are less than their best. Depending on which organization you are involved in, the evening posing may or may not be judged. Some organizations judge the evening posing routine as a separate part of the score. Others do not. So that by the time you get to the evening, this is your chance to do whatever you want to do. And it is not actually judged and scored. However, even though you are posing in the evening and it's not being judged and scored, keep in mind that if you have won your class in the prejudging, and you don't know that when you get to the evening individuals yet, but if you have won your class and you come out with some routine that's completely off the wall, it may hurt you in the overall pose down because the judges will remember that. So always pose to win. Every second you're on stage, your focus has to be to impress the judges. Prejudging routines are generally limited to 60 seconds. The evening routines are generally limited to 90. This doesn't mean that the prejudging routine has to differ from the evening routine. They can be the exact same routine. When you have a 90-second limit, you don't have to use all 90. By the same token, you have a 60-second limit at prejudging, you're not obligated to use all 60. So Just because you got an extra 30 seconds in the evening to pose doesn't mean that, number one, that you have to use it. Number two, it doesn't mean that you should use it, because chances are you'll be throwing in poses that do not enhance your physique. And again, this idea of pose to win is the ultimate idea to keep in mind. If in fact you have the talent to comfortably do a posing routine that goes to the beat of a music, and let's say part of that routine is that you turn to the rear to do a double bicep, and on the beat of the music your arms come in 3 times. It probably looks great at nighttime, especially if you hit those beats just right. But if you do that same routine in the morning when there's no music involved, and you're up there doing a rear double bicep 3 times with no music, it doesn't look so good. So one thing to keep in mind is leave out the repetitive things if they go to the beat of the music or something. Just do 1 double bicep instead of all 3. Things like answering the phone when it rings on your music. You can't do that in the prejudging. You go to pick up a phone in prejudging and there's no music, it just doesn't look good. So something to keep in mind when you're developing a routine that should carry you through prejudging and the evening. Our best advice is to have them match. It's a variable that you can control. If you have a routine for prejudging that differs at nighttime, there is a chance that you'll get to the nighttime routine and forget the additions, or something will get out of order. Whatever it is, it can wind up making you look worse than your best. So if the prejudging routine is identical to the night, then that's one of the variables you can control in making yourself look your best. One of the most common things that we'd like to teach people is that more is not better. You will do much better in your posing routine if you leave the judges and also the audience wanting to see more. Instead of trying to do 15 poses in your 60 seconds of allotted time in the prejudging, cut it down to 8 or 9 of your best. Let them sit there, see you at your best, leave them wanting more instead of boring them with poses that aren't exactly your best. A list of do's and don'ts when you are designing your individual routine would include some things such as leave out poses that are questionable. This is your opportunity to highlight your strengths and hide your weaknesses. So if a pose is questionable, leave it out. Do the ones that make you look absolutely your best. Don't guest pose when you are doing your routine. And what we mean by that is, many times have you seen competitors begin their routine in the middle of the stage. They'll do a few shots, and then they make their way over to the right side of the stage and they do a few shots. Then they take a stroll across to the left side of the stage, do a few more shots, almost the way a guest poser would do it. Guest posing is one thing. Posing to win and to impress the judges is something entirely different. The first step to building your individual posing routine is to find a number of poses that enhance your look and that make you look terrific. Poses that are questionable, leave them out. The best way to accomplish this, take still photos of you in each pose. Or get a video camera, have a friend videotape you doing your poses. This way you can decide which poses make you look great and which poses don't. It's nearly impossible to tell by watching yourself in the mirror, because you always get, number one, the reverse picture. Number two, your eyes will always go to something on your body that you're focusing on. Your eyes may go to your abs or your legs, and you don't get the full picture. Many times I've helped people with posing, and they actually had no clue what they looked like until we took photos. They got them back and they were literally shocked that they looked like that. So take some photos, see which poses look terrific on you, And then from there you can begin to build your routine. The best place to start your routine, to start to design it, so to speak, is with the mandatory poses. You know, by now, getting ready for the contest, you've probably already practiced the relaxed round. You've got that down pat. And you practiced the mandatory round, and you've got that down. Now, if you take the relaxed round and the mandatory round and you mesh them together, that alone can give you a nice individual posing routine. Because your posing routine, if it includes nothing but mandatory poses and the relaxed quarter turns in between, is a great routine because it's clean and very effective. You have two chances to get into the preliminary top 5. They see you in the relaxed round, then they see you in the individual round. As these two rounds take place, each judge formulates a preliminary top 5 in their own mind. It's important for you to impress the judges every chance they see you to get into that preliminary top 5 and really get into the fight. Every pose should reflect your strengths and hide your weaknesses. Every posing routine has a beginning, a content, and an end. And each part should be choreographed and very clean. Choreographed does not mean that you need to be a professional dancer to be a good poser. Methodical works best. In most cases, methodical and clean equals professional. So we will show you that even the most mechanical person can be taught to be a good, clean poser. Again, each posing routine has a beginning. How many times have you seen someone begin a posing routine down in a tuck position? And then they raise up into a front double bicep. Well, that's not bad for the evening routine, which is for show. But in the morning, when you are trying to impress the judges, it's your opportunity to grab their attention, grab their eye. It's wasted time down on the floor. Instead, just come out and hit the pose. Bingo. You grab their eye immediately. No wasted time down in a tuck position. Next, when you get into your poses, very clean transitions work every time. It doesn't matter if you use mandatory poses or auxiliary poses in your routine, but the key is you don't need to have a lot of artsy flowing to make yourself look like a good poser. Tavi will do a little routine, very clean, very methodical, and you can see how each pose just sets itself up into the next one, but she's not doing a lot of flowing. See, as she does the routine, she's simply stepping into each pose very cleanly, not a lot of choreographed transitions. She's keeping herself very erect throughout the entire routine. Swings up into each pose. Very basic and very clean. She didn't have a lot of flowing going on. Now, there are some things she could do to enhance this. If you're comfortable with adding some enhancements, fine. If they're forced, they will look forced. So be comfortable. If it's something you're used to and you're comfortable on stage, you can add some flowing enhancements, then do it. But don't do it just for the sake of doing it. Do it if it's going to make you look better. Let's try the same routine with a little bit of added enhancements, a little bit of arms flowing, some hands, and you'll see how the routine can look different. Again, it's a very clean routine. She's simply adding a few little things with her arms, a little extra movements with her hands, just to enhance the transitions from pose to pose. So again, the first routine was fine. It'll work every time. It was clean. She showed her strengths. She was hiding her weaknesses. It grabbed the attention of the judges, and it left them wanting more. If there's a key in designing your posing routine, it's leave them wanting to see more and don't bore them. In most contests, judges are forced to look at 50 or 60 posing routines in the morning. Best for you to grab their attention, show them what you have, and leave. The next part of designing your routine is your transitions. And it doesn't matter if you're doing all mandatory poses in your routine or if you throw in some auxiliary poses. It's just extremely important to make sure that your transitions are very clean. Our point is that you don't need to be a professional dancer to be a good poser. Choreography only means preparation. So just make sure that every time you have a transition between pose, it is very clean and methodical. Methodical looks professional. Jeremy will do a routine where everything is just very methodical and clean between the poses. And notice, as he goes from pose to pose, he stays erect, places his feet, and goes into the pose. Clean works every time. There's nothing fancy about this. There's not a lot of flowing involved. Just very clean and professional. Even the most mechanical person can do this very methodically. Clean transitions work every single time when you're doing your routine. The idea is stay erect, place your feet, and hit the pose. Transitions can be kept very simple. Of course, if you've got this kind of talent that you can flow freely and look very comfortable on stage, and you have that kind of stage presence and that kind of athleticism, then great. Use it. It can only help you. But if you don't have that naturally, and if it is forced, then it will look forced on stage. And probably it will look very choppy, and it will take away from the look of your physique. So clean, easy transitions are always the way to go. Depending on which organization you compete in, the evening routine carries different amounts of weight. If you are in an organization in which the evening routine is judged and scored as part of your overall score, then it is incredibly necessary for you to have a great routine, and creativity comes into play. If your organization does not judge the evening routine as a part of the score, then it doesn't matter if your routine matches your prejudging routine or not, and it won't help or hurt you because the scoring has already been done at the prejudging. If there's any question as to how each organization handles the entire judging process, whether it's do they let you twist during the relaxed round, or what mandatory poses are involved in the mandatory round, because some organizations include more poses than others. And finally, do I do my posing routine in the prejudging, or is it only judged in the evening round? Simply call your local organization, your local chairman. They'll be happy to give you all the information you need. A posing routine can be built by using mandatory poses only if you're not comfortable in doing auxiliary shots. So we'll show you a routine that's done strictly with mandatory poses. Front double bicep. Into a side chest. Side tricep. rear double bicep, turn to the front, abdominals, relax and bow. If you've gotten to a point in designing your routine that you have the mandatory poses down pat, maybe you even have them in some kind of an order that you like, because they don't have to be done in the same order that the judges call them out. You don't have to begin your routine with a front double bicep. You're more than welcome to begin your routine with a front lat spread if it's a great pose. But if it's time to enhance your routine now, the first thing to do is practice some other poses, some auxiliary shots. You do a basic standard mandatory side chest, where there are some other ways to do that side chest. You're not permitted to do them in the mandatory round, but they're terrific for your posing routine. There's some nice double bicep moves that you can do. As an example, instead of a front double bicep or a rear double bicep, you can do a twisting double bicep. Basically the same, but all you do is twist your hips around, and it gives you a whole new look. So something like that will at least break up the monotony of someone who sees just mandatory poses throughout someone's routine. What we show you now are some auxiliary shots that you can use to enhance your routine. They're very simple. They will highlight strengths and hide weaknesses. One example is a 3/4 back pose. The key to this pose, first of all, her upper body is directly over her feet, so she's got good balance. How many times have you seen someone do this pose where they're tilted over too far? They look like they're going to topple over. So it needs to be balanced, and you should feel the weight on your back feet, on your back foot, so that you've got a certain sense of balance and a good foundation. Next, this arm is straight across, good fist here. The direction of your head is important. It's facing this way. See what happens when she turns it to the rear. Her lines are shot, so turn it back the other way. And don't forget this back arm. If it sticks out this way, see what happens. Tuck it under. It's a nice 3/4 back shot. Okay, another auxiliary pose. This is a nice way to make your hips look thinner. Not a problem that Tavi has, but if you have wide hips, in this case, it can make your hips look thinner, your shoulders look nice and broad. It's a very simple pose. The keys are this. Your hips need to face 90 degrees away from the audience. What it does is gives you a real thin look in your waistline. If she twists too far, then it opens her up and it shows the width of your waist. So you keep your hips facing directly to that wall. Next, the hand placement is important. If her hands are held too low, it lengthens your upper body. So hold your hands up around your obliques. It shortens the upper body, makes it look wider and thicker. Gives you a better V-taper all around. Again, her feet are close together for a nice small base, up into some good shoulder structure, and she's very erect and her head is held up. So this is a nice auxiliary pose that's very easy to get into. Okay, another auxiliary pose. Similar to the last one, but the difference is obviously that her hands are away from her body. The keys to this pose are much the same in that the hips need to face 90 degrees away from the judges. This gives you that small waisted look. In this case, Tavi's highlighting her calves also. Now if your calves are a weak point, then bring your feet in. Same pose, but it doesn't highlight the calves. So hide your weaknesses and highlight your strengths. Arms are bent slightly. See what happens when her arms come straight. The pose becomes a little too rigid. So bend your arms slightly. She's always erect. Her abdominals are in control. Her head's up and facing the crowd. Okay, another auxiliary pose. This is a nice auxiliary side chest pose. The keys to this pose are the placement of your hands and the direction of your fists. If she turns her fists the other way, look what happens. It changes the lines. Turned this way, there's a certain focus that runs all the way to this point. Her feet are together for a nice small base. Up, her body is held erect, and she's not leaning over too far. See what happens if she leans over this way. Suddenly it looks like she might just tip over. So lean back, keep the balance over your feet. Her triceps are tight and flexed. Her chest is flexed. Her head's up. It's a nice side chest auxiliary pose. Another auxiliary pose. It's a little different way to do the side tricep. In this case, the difference is that, again, she's kicked her foot back. Now, if she does a regular side tricep and then go into this one, it's a nice way to change your lines. It gives you a little bit different look. So even if you do a side tricep twice in your routine, just change your foot placement. It's a whole new pose. Another good auxiliary pose, and maybe one that you can use on the way back around from the back to the front or front to the back, is one to the side. This is a very clean, easy shot. The keys are this. Keep your abdominals in complete control. Your arms are at a 90-degree angle right here, and your head is up and erect. Nice clean pose, but a nice way to get around from the front to the back. Another auxiliary pose is one from the rear. In this case, it looks complicated, but take it apart. Her feet and her calves are flexed, hamstrings are flexed. The key to the pose, if any, is that she's got her weight on the right foot. So she's not straight up and down like that. She leans this way. It gives her some lines and some flow. Up in here, very basic, hand against her forehead. She's flexing her shoulders and biceps. And this arm, instead of being up and flexed in a double bicep position, is straight out. Now, she wouldn't want her hand to be in a fist, because see what it does to her lines. If she opens it up like this, gives her a nice focus out and pointed. Another auxiliary pose done from the rear. You should always focus on proper form in your routine, and it's essential to make sure that when you're doing your poses in your individual routine, don't lose sight of the fact that you still have to do each pose perfectly. Whether it is a mandatory shot or an auxiliary pose, there's still a particular way to do each one, and they should be treated that way. Many times I've seen people put together routines and they get too worried about the order of poses, or how long am I in a pose, or how do I get into a pose or back out of it. Next thing you know, they forget that when you hit that pose, you still have to squeeze your calves and hamstrings and glutes and stay erect. So many times people shrug their shoulders, or they are slouched, or they lose control of their abdominals, or they don't squeeze their hamstrings, simply because they're too worried about getting in and out of poses with some kind of an artsy flair, instead of just staying very basic and making sure that every pose is perfect from top to bottom. How many times have you seen a contest where a competitor almost looks like he's been making up poses just for the sake of having something different? We will show you some auxiliary poses done correctly that can enhance your routine. One would be a 3/4 back pose. This pose was made popular first by Arnold Schwarzenegger. The key to the pose is this. His weight needs to be distributed over his feet evenly. You've ever seen anyone do this pose and they're leaned forward too far? It looks like they're going to tip over. Lean back. You need to feel the weight on that rear foot. That tells you that you're balanced and you have a good foundation. Next, this arm is straight and up, this thumb is tucked in. Small hand means bigger bicep. His face is facing this way. If he turns his head to the rear, suddenly his lines are changed. Turn back this way. And the last thing is that back arm. Don't forget that. If he straightens it straight out, it destroys the lines. So tuck it in. Obviously his calves, hamstrings, and abdominals are flexed and in control. But this is a good three-quarter back pose. It gives you the opportunity to make your waist look very small. If he twists too much, it shows the width of the waist. So if you're a thick-waisted person, this is a good way to make your waist look smaller. Gives you a nice V-taper. So the key on this is to have your hips facing at a 90-degree angle from the judges. Good three-quarter back shot. Another good auxiliary pose is a twisting double bicep. In this case, his weight is evenly distributed over his feet, so he has nice balance. A couple keys to this pose. Your hips need to be facing 90 degrees away from the judges to give you that small-waisted look and enhances your V-taper. Your arms are important as they need to have nice lines across the top. If this arm is down, see how it destroys your lines. So pick this arm up. If anything, it's okay to be up a little bit, as long as his upper body is not leaning forward. So pick yourself back up, and the main thing is this arm needs to be level or up a little. His head is facing this way. If it turns to the rear, his lines aren't nearly as good. Turn back to the left. His thumbs are in to make his biceps look bigger. Twisting double bicep from the rear. Another auxiliary pose that you need to be careful with is a twisting double bicep to the front. As you see Jeremy get into it, the reason you need to be careful is this. It does enhance you and shows you to have a smaller waistline up into a V-taper. But it also exposes you right in through here. So if this area is not developed or not real tight, sometimes there are very few of us that can do this pose and really look good. Keep in mind that especially in your morning routine, you're trying to impress the judges on every single pose. So this one, if it exposes you, don't do it. Done correctly, his hips are facing that wall. His arms are straight across, his thumbs are tucked in, and just like that. His head should be facing that way. It's a twisting double bicep. Another one is an auxiliary side chest pose. If you swing down into the auxiliary side chest, this is a nice pose. Done correctly though, his hands are at oblique level. If he puts his hands down too low, see what happens. It lengthens his upper body and takes away from the thickness. If you raise your hands up, suddenly it cuts off your upper body, makes you look a lot wider on top, and enhances your thickness and density. He's always erect. See what happens when he does this pose and crunches down. Now he's hiding everything. It's all bunched together. Stand up erect. Head's up high, his abs are in control. It's a nice side auxiliary chest pose. Another good auxiliary pose that can be used, especially in the evening routine, or if you have a weakness in your legs. A good way to hide the weakness in your legs is a lunging pose. Done correctly, your heel needs to be directly under the center of your body. Gives you a good balance and a good base. Now when you swing up into the pose, his upper body is held erect, straight up and down, just like a standing front double bicep. The other key to this is his left foot. Notice how the ankle is broken down that way and he's on the side of his foot. See what happens when he puts it on the flat part of his foot. Now suddenly his lines are shot. So it's important to break it down. Now it gets him a little bit lower, nice lunging position. Perfect. And a lot of poses can be done in this position if you want to. I recommend these for the evening routine though. Now, getting out of this pose can be very difficult, but the key is this. Practice putting all the weight on your right foot. Nothing on this, all the weight's there, so you're pushing yourself up just as if your upper body is in a tube. So you come straight up out of the ground like that. Done incorrectly, get into that lunge position again. How many times have you seen someone in a lunge position and when they come out of it, they come this way? It looks a little awkward. So much better, let's try it again. Picture yourself being encased in a tube where you come straight up out of the ground. Nice lunging pose, and it will enhance any routine. Another good auxiliary pose that you can use, and it's especially good if you're trying to find a way to get to the back from the front or vice versa, is a side serratus pose. Done correctly, Jeremy's feet are spaced closely together, so he's got a good small base. Come up, his hips are facing 90 degrees away from the judges to give him a small waisted look. His body is erect, his head's up, and when he hits the pose, you blow out. So your abs and your serratus and intercostals all come in at one time. Don't forget this hand. You got to do something with it. So it's posed correctly, flexed down, the fist is down. Now, how many times have you seen someone do this pose where they bend over too far and they crunch like that? It takes away from his overall structure. So pick yourself up, nice and erect, blow out, hit the pose. It's a good side serratus pose. Another auxiliary shot that you can use is the most muscular shot. And there are a couple different ways to do it. Let's do a crab most muscular. Now the variations are that your foot can be placed in this position, showing the cord in the inner thigh area, or slam it down on your heel, showing the striations on the outside of the quad. Either way is fine. Keep your hands up at navel level as it cuts off your upper body and makes you look thicker and wider. The auxiliary to this is a standing most muscular pose. That's where you bring your heels together. It's very symmetrical. Hands go at navel level. Turn this hand like this. It'll give you some more peak on your bicep. Stay erect. If your hands are too low, look what happens. It lengthens you out. So bring your hands up at navel level. It keeps you a little shorter on top, thicker and wider. Now the key is, when you hit the shot, after you squeeze your legs, it's time to hit your upper body. Blow out and try to shove yourself straight through the floor. All your muscularity comes in immediately. See what happens if you lean forward too far and trying to crunch down, you lose your symmetry and size. So stand up straight, just try to drive yourself straight through the floor. It's a nice auxiliary most muscular shot. How many times have you seen someone, when they're in this shot, they leave their foot right there and they go into a most muscular? It didn't really have that much transition. Go back into the abdominal shot. In order to create a little bit of a break between poses, square back up, set your foot, and hit the most muscular. Now it's a brand new pose from top to bottom. Relax. So the transitions, clean, methodical, nothing artsy about it. Just stay erect, make the turn, and hit your pose. One thing to stay away from when developing a posing routine is posing your legs by themselves. They show up in every other pose that you do, whether it's a front double bicep or a rear double bicep or even a side chest. So don't waste valuable posing time when you only have 60 seconds to work with in just posing your legs. Now what happens in many cases when you do that is your upper body is not held erect, you slouch, and unless your legs are incredible, it highlights a body part that gets shown in all of your other poses anyway, and it's wasted time. So if your other poses throughout your routine are done correctly, the judges have already seen your legs. They've had an opportunity to see them, especially in relation to your upper body. So don't spend valuable time highlighting your legs as one body part. When you are designing your posing routine, it's often common to go through muscle magazines and see poses that you like and then try to imitate them. It's okay, except that there are poses that some of the pros have developed for themselves that we simply can't do them. Or if we do them, they just obviously don't look anything like they do in the magazines. And sometimes they've been developed to highlight certain strengths in these professionals so that when we try to do them, they look less than one of our best shots. And obviously with the idea in mind that you want to impress the judges the whole way, then it's not a good idea to show a shot that looks good on Kevin Levrone and it doesn't look good on you. Because people will recognize the fact that whether it's Kevin's shot or Dorian Yates or Sean Ray or whoever, the bottom line is it doesn't look good on you. Let's try a couple shots that we see all the time. One is a shot that Sean Ray does. It's kind of like this. He comes down. It's a fantastic shot for Sean Ray and one of his signature poses. But done by someone else who doesn't have the structure and muscularity and density, it just doesn't look the same. And sometimes it can really open you up and expose a lot of weaknesses. So check a shot, maybe get a picture taken of you in a shot and see if it's the way you want to look. See how much different do you look in that pose than what you think you look like when you look in the mirror. Okay, stand up, square up. Another one we see all the time is one that Kevin does, Kevin Levrone. It's because he's developed a lot of poses that fit his physique. Really wide shoulders, really thick chest. Kevin does a pose that kind of leads into his side chest where he leans forward like this. His hands are a little bit lower and closer together, but the idea is that he's swinging up and trying to show the density of his chest. For Kevin, again, it's one of his signature poses and it's great. But if you don't have that incredible muscularity and density that Kevin Levrone has, sometimes it just obviously doesn't enhance your physique. So again, square up and relax. Keep in mind, when you're putting your posing routine together, make sure you look as good in the shot as you think you do. Get some pictures taken, get a video taken, make sure it's the way you want to look. Every posing routine has a beginning, middle, and an end. And it's very important to choreograph every second that you are on stage so the judges always see you at your best. How many times have you seen someone do a really good, clean routine and then they wind up at the end after their last pose with some kind of a half of a wave, or they don't know what they want to do? It just doesn't give you a nice finish. Another thing you'll see people do very often, how many times have you seen someone finish the routine down on one knee with their arms extended? This has got to be the most popular ending in the country. It started because Lee Haney did it when he won the Olympia. But Lee Haney had mounds of muscle across these ridges, and it looked spectacular. 99% of us don't have that. So when you go down, all you see is flatness, especially if your arms are at the wrong angle. this pose works for very few of us. Stand up. The best ending to a routine is clean, simple, just bow. Pose within yourself. Pick the poses that make you look the best. Don't try to do some kind of a pose that you just can't do. If you have small biceps, don't keep doing double bicep poses. If you have poor width in your back, then don't keep doing poses like front lat spreads or rear lat spreads, because if the muscle density is not there yet, don't highlight it. Keep in mind that the routine is your opportunity to hide weaknesses. So pose within yourself, show your strengths, and hide the weaknesses. If you have a particularly strong body part, it's not necessary to keep doing that body part. As an example, if you have great arms and really big biceps, and you keep doing front double bicep, and twisting double bicep, and rear double bicep, and a 3/4 back shot with some biceps, and you keep highlighting your bicep shots, then the judges keep getting focused on that, and it almost looks like that's all you have is biceps. Gets drawn away from the rest of your body. So if you have a really good body part, it will stick out on its own. You don't need to highlight it. Just do your poses regularly and make sure there's variety in your routine. When it comes to putting music to your routine for the evening event, it is absolutely crucial that you don't lose sight of the fact that you get judged on your routine and the way your body looks. You don't get judged on who you picked for your backup music. They don't care if you use Luther Vandross or Whitney Houston or DJ Jazzy Jeff. The whole key is, what does your body look like and what does every pose look like? If you are looking for music to use in your evening routine, a couple of things to keep in mind. Find something that's pleasing to you, but then check yourself and maybe get some input from some other people. If necessary, let one of the local judges listen to your music, see what they think, see how it will go along with other music that's at the event. You don't want to be breaking any new ground with music at a bodybuilding contest. Really hard, heavy, pounding music sometimes will take away from your routine. You're looking for things that will either enhance you or at least have people focusing on your body and not your music. When you're putting together your evening routine, you'll need to make a decision as to when your music is going to start. Do you want your music to start when they announce your name? Or do you want the music to start when you get to center stage? Now, if you begin your music or tell the sound guy to start the music when you get to center stage, that's fine, because you may want it to start when you're out there and you've got some kind of a initial pose you want to do to the music. That's great. The possible downfall is, though, that if you get out there and they begin to play someone else's music by mistake, then you're stuck out there and they've got to switch tapes, or you have to tell them, it's not my music. So one way to alleviate that problem is start the music when your name is announced. That way you're still off stage. So the MC says, and our next competitor is Joe Smith. Well, you don't have to walk out until your music starts. If the music doesn't start, don't walk out. Your posing music should be on a separate cassette. And good advice is make a number of tapes. When you finally come up with the music you like and you're going to use it, make 4 tapes. You'd be amazed how tapes get misplaced or they break. So make a lot of tapes. Secondly, it's tough to do it on your home stereo and have it come out correctly if you've got some kind of a mix involved that you want to do. If you want to mix a couple of songs, the chances of us mixing these things on a home stereo and having it come out correctly and pleasing is slim. So if you've got some mixes involved, take the time and the expense to get it done correctly from a professional. They'll come up and you'll have a tape that the beat flows throughout. It's exactly what you need. The best advice, again, though, is skip the mixes, stay basic, find a song that you like, get it on a blank cassette, have it be at the beginning of the cassette, and make a number of them. Most organizations do not allow you to hand in a cassette that has other songs on it, because if that's the case, many times the sound man has been directed to rewind the tape to the beginning. Then obviously you won't be on your song. If in fact your music starts out fine and you think everything's rolling along great and all of a sudden your tape breaks, just keep posing. Even in the event that you insist on starting your music when you get to center stage, instead of starting your music when your name is announced, and you wind up being out there on center stage, and it's 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds go by and there's no music and you look like a stranded person out there, just begin doing your routine. You'll be amazed at the positive response you get from people when you just blow off the fact that you have no music and start hitting your shots. Generally, the person winds up getting more response, more positive response than anyone else. If you have a particular talent and a particular stage presence that allows you to pose to the beat of a song, then great. Use that talent and set your poses up to go along with the music. But if you don't have that talent, and most of us don't, then the music should be nothing more than background to your choreographed routine. There will be times throughout the evening finals that you may have to be involved in what's called a pose down. You're on stage with the other winners of your class, and sometimes they will call for a pose down after you've gotten your trophies. In that case, you're not being judged. When you're on stage fighting for the overall title against the class winners of the other classes, then the pose down may be judged. So it's important for you to know exactly what you're doing when they call for a pose down. Again, it's this idea of posing to win. Don't just wing it, and don't just think, oh, well, it'll come to me when the time comes. When they call for a pose down, and you hear the head judge or the MC say, you have 30 seconds to pose down, just start doing your routine. Because it's comfortable to you, it's something you're used to, you know it by heart, and you also know that every pose in that routine is a good one. That way you won't get stuck between poses thinking, well, is this a good pose, is this a good one, did I do this one already? And you wind up looking very disoriented and disorganized on stage. Finally, if you have done everything that you are supposed to do in preparing your posing routine, you've learned your mandatories, the relaxed round's great, you've designed a clean and efficient routine that got you through the prejudging. You're into the finals and the music's playing and you forget your routine, either because the crowd's out there or because your mind just went blank. The best thing to do is just start doing mandatory poses and do them in the order that you've learned them. Front double bicep, front lat spread, side chest, side tricep, turn to the rear, double bicep, lat spread, turn to the front, abdominals and most muscular, square up and bow. It's the best thing to do if you forget your routine. Now we'll take a look at a posing routine that has the additional auxiliary poses involved in it. It's a nice way to enhance your routine. We'll have Jeremy go through it. I'll call them out. Keep in mind, when he does his transitions, they're very methodical and very clean. They're not overly choreographed. Front double bicep. Lat spread. Into a side chest. Notice that all he does is drops his arms, turns, and hits the pose. Side tricep. Three-quarter back pose. Now let's go back down into the side tricep again. When you make your transitions, the one thing you can do is keep your hands open until you squeeze the pose. If nothing else, it will give you a look of having a little bit of flow without going overboard. So go into a three-quarter back pose, open your hands, and then squeeze them. Exactly. Rear double bicep. Make sure you're opened up enough here. Rear lat spread. Auxiliary side chest. Twisting double bicep. Abdominals. In this one, keep in mind the judges are lower than you, so bring it forward. Crab most muscular. And stand up with your heels together into a standing most muscular. In this one, keep your hands at navel level, try to shove yourself straight through the floor. Square up and bow. A nice clean routine involving some of the auxiliary poses and some of the mandatory poses. In this posing routine, she has a few enhancements. A little more flow with her arms and her hands. Just a few things to enhance the transitions. Now, these things aren't necessary, but if you can do them comfortably, they're a nice addition to a routine. Basically the same poses, but the transitions are a little bit more flowing. There are ways to build excitement into your routine. See some people sometimes where they start out really strong. Great front double bicep, great lat spread. They turn to the side and they, instead of hitting a side chest pose with any kind of authority, they ease into it. Now they turn to the rear and they do a rear double bicep and there's no snap. And suddenly the excitement is gone. The people are, you can just see the crowd start to go, ah. So the key is, number one, to build excitement in your routine, pick which poses are your best. Use them at the beginning and at the end. There's bound to be some kind of an ebb in the flow of your routine sometime. The chances of us doing a posing routine where every single pose is fantastic is slim. Some of the pros can do it, most of us can't. So when you know that up front, then try to pick the poses that are the greatest, do them first and last. That way you'll grab the attention of the judges initially, and you also grab their attention at the end, so that they'll remember you before you leave. Let's summarize the 6 points that you need to remember. Pose to win. Pose to impress the judges. Pose within your limits. Include variety in your routine. Always leave them wanting more, and prepare for everything. Good luck.